I wasn't initially going to be talking about Remain, but, you know, it is summer, so sure, water polo. But with that said, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hello, how's it going? My name is JoJo. I tend to talk about seasonal anime here on the channel, although it's less of like an episode discussion and more of just my general thoughts on a particular series week in and week out, so it's not always about the episode, but it's usually about the episode. With that said though, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AniTube know that you're here. And with that said, let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode. You may have noticed that I said that I wasn't initially going to be talking about Remain, and that is actually genuinely pretty true. This wasn't really on my radar to begin with. I mean, it was on my radar, but it wasn't something that I had planned on watching. In fact, the time slot for this particular time, or rather, the initial video that was supposed to be in this time slot was going to be videos discussing Realist Hero, since Realist Hero was the one isekai this season, well, one of a few isekai this season, that looked genuinely kind of interesting, right? Because there's a good chunk of isekai this season. However, I fell asleep watching Realist Hero, which is a little embarrassing. Not really Realist Hero's fault. It seems like it has a lot to say, and it's probably going to handle it well. It's just, for me, I actually drifted off. In fairness, I was already kind of tired going into Realist Hero, so it's not really Realist Hero's fault, but I did, in fact, fall asleep, and I had sort of a hard time watching it. So I needed something to talk about today, and I discovered Remain. Now, I had talked a little bit about Remain in my What I'll Be Watching stream, as well as just generally in build-up for, if you remember the old Otaku Nonsense News videos, I had talked about Remain for quite a while, actually, because Remain has sort of been a thing that's been happening. It's pretty much the loving project of Masafumi Nishida. Masafumi Nishida has been working on Remain for a while now, and if you don't know, he's doing basically everything for the show. He's directing, he's writing the scripts, he's the series supervisor. I believe he's doing like sound mixing, he's doing like a ton of stuff. This is very much his baby. And I had been keeping a close eye on it for a while now, because if you don't know, I'm a huge fan of a series that you might remember called Free. I am such a big fan, in fact, that Free is actually very much my favorite show of all time. I'm not even kidding. I genuinely adore Free. It is one of my favorite series of all time. I love it to pieces. My favorite KyoAni series, and just in general, my favorite anime series, bar none. But obviously this isn't Free. This is slightly different. Now, Free is about swimming relays, right? Whereas Remain is about water polo. However, it's very clear to me that Free has some kind of inspiration, because it's just the way that they depict these lads, it's very much like kind of harkening back to Free, but with, shall I say, maybe more of a shoujo spin. Maybe not shoujo, but sort of a more dramatic spin. I'll just say dramatic instead of shoujo, but it did kind of give me some shoujo vibes. But for the most part, it's Free with a lot more of a dramatic spin instead of a slice of life spin, which is, you know, kind of interesting. And I will say, the only thing that has me reluctant about Remain, because, spoilers, I loved this week's episode, but the only thing that I'm reluctant about in regards to Remain is Mappa. I don't really like the way that Mappa treats their staff, and I don't really like the direction Mappa's heading in with the sheer insane amount of different anime that they have been working on the last little while. I'm genuinely kind of concerned as to where they're going to be going as a company going forward. I do think that they're running themselves pretty thin. However, I kind of just can't help it. I'm just too curious to see what it is that Mappa is going to be doing with a free-ish sports series. So, yeah, unfortunately, I am just kind of hooked, and I don't think that I'll be looking back, because even though it's Mappa, and I don't like the way they treat their employees always do a really good job. So it's sort of this weird catch-22 where it's hard to support them because they make really mean decisions and they do really mean things, and it's not cool the way that they treat their staff, but also their staff does such a good job on these shows. It's like, how could I not watch these shows? I don't know. It's a vicious cycle, I suppose, that we're stuck in, and I would recommend you actually look into Studio Mappa if you weren't aware of just how poorly they treat their animators over there, and it's genuinely kind of upsetting. Especially with big series that they've been handling like Titan and Kaisen and now Chainsaw Man. It doesn't seem like it's slowing down, and I'm genuinely getting more and more concerned, not just for MAPPA, but for the animation industry as a whole. If you keep treating animators poorly, I don't really think we're going to have animators left around to, you know, make anime. So anyway, soapbox over. Wanted to just address that because maybe somebody was going to bring it up, and I agree with you. I do think, even though it's a great series, I do think it's worth pointing out that MAPPA does bad stuff. So, you know, going to just address that here. However, that's not the only thing I want to talk about this week, obviously. I also want to just talk about, in general, one of the best elements of the episode to me, and that is the accident. So, this show does something so smart right away. And I'm so impressed because it's such a simple decision. So, right at the beginning, they immediately have the character be in an accident. Right, we see him looking up at sort of this, they're under the water, and they're looking up at a water polo ball. That's hard to say for some reason. Water polo ball. And they're looking up at this water polo ball. And they're not sure what it is. They're like, it's a ball? Am I underwater? What's happening? And then they wake up in a hospital room. And it's been, I believe they say, about a year and a half or something like that. It's been about half a year and 3 weeks. It's a little more than half a year, I believe, has passed or something like that. I don't quite remember. But it's enough time where they've been in bed for a while. It's like been at least a good few months, bare minimum. And this is, and the thing is, it's not just that they were in bed for a few months, right? They have amnesia for the past 3 years. They can't, our main character Minato can't remember pretty much anything from the last 3 years. He remembers flashes, like we see him remember that there's like a thicket in a certain area, and he remembers obviously his parents and his sister, since, you know, they stretch back a little further than 3 years. But he doesn't quite remember his old water polo team or like his old skills or anything like that. Like a lot of his past self is just gone now. There's even a really funny moment where he sees a picture of his old water polo team and he looks at himself and he's shredded, right? And then he looks at himself now and he doesn't look bad or anything, because I'm like, he just kind of looks like a relatively fit but nowhere near as shredded looking dude. And he immediately is just like, nope, like he just like nopes out because he just feels like he can't keep up anymore, which we'll get into in a bit. But the accident genuinely is such a brilliant way to start a series when you really think about it, because it immediately sets up pre-established dynamics and history while still keeping the MC our ride-along character. Even though these characters have a previously established relationship with the MC, it doesn't really matter because the MC, much like us, is still going to be rediscovering all these things for the first time. We see this later when the MC is flipping through their old water polo book and they see the episode title, like the episode drop of Remain, and they try to understand what that means, and it's sort of like being offside in hockey from what I can gather. I don't know if that's true. Water polo fans, do let me know. But it's sort of like being in an area where you can't be in the middle of play, so it's you know. Remain also comes back a little bit later as a title when he finds out that his family has sort of remained in the same spot since the accident. And the accident, again, like I said, is just absolutely brilliant in terms of making sure that the character stays sort of a fish out of water. They still remain a ride-along character. And if you don't know what a ride-along character is, it just means a character who is introduced into the story for the sole purpose of being told how everything works, as though they were the audience member themselves. A ride-along character is basically the character within which we ride along through the story, right? It's like they're our car and we're experiencing the story through them, right? Like through their eyes. And that's brilliant. I think that's like genuinely such a good solid base to start, and it only improves because like immediately this makes the main character's reluctance to rejoin the water polo team make so much sense, right? Like they don't want to, like Minato doesn't want to get back in right away because it's scary, right? Like he was in an accident, right? That has nothing to do with water polo. Like the accident itself was like car related, right? It was a car accident. By the way, Yep. If you don't know, your boy is afraid of two things in this world. Terrified of spiders, but also, to a lesser extent, really spooked by cars. I don't like driving. So he gets into a car accident, and I was like, yep, that's exactly why I don't drive. But this whole accident, while not water polo related, it does take him away from it, and he sees just how much progress he made, and it makes him not want to continue that, right? Like, it immediately just adds this, like, understandable reluctance, right? Like how he's like, no, I've been gone for too long. I've sort of, because I was taken out of it, and I see how strong I was, it doesn't really encourage me. It just sort of makes me not want to do it. And like, I totally understand where he's coming from. But it also still adds a much bigger desire on the audience's part to see Minato jump back into water polo. Like, you want to see him get back into it, and you see his family, like, understandably tell him, like, you know, if you don't want to get back in, that doesn't matter. Like, that's, like, we just want you to be happy. And like, they smile at him, and he happily eats his food. But once they think that he's not looking, they frown, right? Because they wish he would go back. And you could see that heartbreak. His sister's clever. She notices this, right? Like, she catches this, but changes the subject. And she doesn't really want anybody to... She doesn't want Minato to feel bad about not going back to water polo. She doesn't want her parents to feel bad that Minato feels like he can't get back into it. Like, they're just trying to have these characters, like, move forward, but they just can't get past this big event in their lives, right? We see Minato's sister later having, like, some pretty serious PTSD, waking up from a nightmare of the crash, and Minato is, like, feels the weight of this moment, realizing that his family has remained in place that whole time since the accident. And it's so good. Like, the direction of this scene, the writing, like, the way that the Remain book is still open, because it would be, because that's exactly where he left it earlier in the scene, and Minato finds it again, and he connects that his family has remained in the same spot, right? Like, it's such brilliant, like, the way it's written is brilliant, the way it's directed is brilliant. Masafumi Nishida is on fire. For some reason, they had this story ready to go, and they were excited about it. And again, one more thing about the accident, just before I stop, or before I can finish gushing, right? I have to say, they handily wave away any potential, like, natural born talent issue that could arise from this type of situation, right? A lot of sports anime have this issue where the main character tends to be a sort of natural born talent. They're just immediately gifted. They are burdened with glorious purpose, right? Just immediately given all of these skills in which they can, like, just sweep any obstacle, and that they're immediately just brilliant at the sport, and nothing can stop them, right? This handily waves that away, because he's not a natural born star. He doesn't have natural born talent. He's not some gifted prodigy just because of some genes, something in the gene pool made him really good. No. He actually already trained his ass off. He just lost the memories of how to do those things. He now has to rediscover it. And as he rediscovers it, he's likely to just jump back into the place that he once was, right? He's not going to remain, a sort of, like, newbie. He's not going to remain under a fish out of water. He will eventually get his skills back the more and more he learns. And I do think this actually improves the show, as it actually shows just how much the character is actually able to grow and adapt because of the accident. The accident is going to make Minato actually improve. It is going to make the process of watching Minato improve a lot more interesting, because we're going to see him rediscover things as opposed to discovering them for the first time. I think that that's personally really cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say in regards to the accident. I know I gushed about it, but I just think it's such a brilliant story mechanic, and I'm just so impressed by that. And very quickly, I do want to touch on some character design stuff. I don't have a whole lot to say, but I do want to dive in a little bit into that. The first character that I really want to dig into is, of course, our main character, Minato. Minato Kiyomizu. Definitely mispronounced that. Minato Kiyomizu. And they are voiced by Yuto Uemura, who you guys might know as Tamaki from My Hero, Atsushi from Bungo Stray Dogs, and of course you would most likely know them as Thorfinn. Uemura definitely brings a lot of, I would say, more Atsushi vibes to the character, but this is actually sort of a different vibe for Uemura. Minato is a lot more sort of bubbly than characters that I'm used to Uemura voicing. Usually a lot of the characters that Uemura voices are either sort of shy or just kind of reserved. So Minato is definitely a new way for Uemura to really flex their seiyuu muscle. And I think as a design, Minato is kind of interesting. He has this sort of messy black hair. I think that just mainly to show that, you know, the character's been sort of bedridden for a while. So the messy hair sort of makes you think of Bedhead. So it does track with who they are and where they've been within the series. Brown eyes, get ready for all the characters to have brown eyes because there are brown-eyed boys. Sorry, I had to do it. But they pretty much all have brown eyes, just to varying degrees of lightness. And Minato's brown eyes, as well as all the others, I feel like it's going to just come to show how dependable these characters are for different reasons. All these characters feel dependable, just in slightly different ways, in the same way that the brown eyes are all slightly different shades. But they all have brown eyes, and I thought that was kind of funny, so I wanted to bring that up. But when it comes to Minato's design in terms of like both in the show and the character design that we were given before the series came out, you'll notice that the jacket is actually left open on Minato. This to me is sort of interesting as it shows him be sort of more semi-casual, right? Like he's casual, but not quite as casual as a character like, say, Jojima, but not quite as formal as a character like Oka. And we'll get into their designs in a sec, but I do think that Minato being sort of in both worlds is sort of fitting for his character. He doesn't really have anywhere to go, right? Like he feels like he can't go back to water polo, but he also feels like he doesn't really want to join any other clubs either. And he's not really sure what to do with himself, so him being in sort of this should I say formal but not quite formal outfit, it makes sense. And I do think it also makes him seem a little bit more calm, which is sort of matched by the blue running shoes. If you don't know, blue as a color, usually associated with security and stuff, but I don't think Minato is necessarily a secure character. He doesn't really feel secure with himself. There's a lot of self-doubt there. I feel like the blue is more so to indicate a more calm demeanor. Even though he can be very excitable, I think he's very, he's trying to be calm. He's just trying to enjoy his school life, but he's suddenly drawn back into the world of water polo, which does sort of freak him out. But I think the blue is just sort of meant to show that he's trying to have a more calm demeanor, along with the uniform jacket just being left open. Not to mention the fact that he's wearing running shoes, which definitely shows that he's a lot more athletic than maybe other characters in the series. We'll get to Oka in just a sec, but also his more excitable posture also is very telling of who this character is and where they've been and all that good stuff. But let's actually go ahead and talk about Itaro Oka. Words. I'm good at them. I'm not very good at pronouncing character names though. Eitaro Oka, voiced by Kotaro Nishima, whose work I'm unfortunately not very familiar with. If you know Nishima from anything, do let me know. But Nishima's work I'm not too familiar with, so Oka is my first real introduction to their character, and it was a good introduction. I do think that they actually nailed the whole sort of Kohai thing quite well, and the character design is also very Kohai as well. The sort of like light brown hair, sort of coconut headish, has very, very light brown eyes. Again, just dependable types of personalities. And what I find the most interesting is that the uniform is clean and buttoned up. He wears glasses and brown dress shoes. Again, brown as a color, just sort of a dependable color. Kohai, very reliable. A Kohai is always going to be there for their senpai. But the glasses, very studious, book smart. And on top of that, maybe even a bit, not so much goofy, but maybe even a bit geeky. And then the uniform being very clean, very like no wrinkles, buttoned up, very classy. I think that just goes to show the difference between a character like Minato versus Oka. Oka's very much, cares about their uniform, cares about their studious nature. Maybe not like super, super book smart, but they truly are like a bit of a geek for water polo and in particular Minato. And I think that really comes through in the design. I think Oka has a very solid character design, but you know who also has a very solid character design? Jojima. I will repeat, this man's name is Jojima. Jojima. We have a JoJo in this show. Anyway, so Jojima is voiced by none other than the, honestly, legend in the making that is Subaru Kimura. Subaru Kimura has been in a lot of stuff that I've noticed lately, a lot of stuff. You might know him as Tendo from Haikyuu, Pesci from JoJo's, Todo from Jujutsu Kaisen, Ichiro from Hip Mike, if you like me, or Hoodlum from why can't I think of the name? Akudama Drive. Wow, blanked. But yeah, his voice really shifts. He's a super solid Seiyu, and the man's got rap game too, if you've ever seen Hit Mike. But Kimura really nails Jojima, makes Jojima immediately engaging. Along with Jojima's design, I think they couldn't have gotten a better Seiyu for this than Kimura. I think they just absolutely nail it. And just looking at the character design, right? This dude is probably going to end up being my favorite character. Not only is he voiced by Kimura, not only is his name a JoJo's reference, even though it's probably not, but I'm going to pretend like it is, but his design is absolutely brilliant. Because here's the funny thing, I know a lot of people might look at this design and think that he doesn't look like he even goes to the same school. It's actually the same uniform. It actually is legit the exact same uniform. It's just barely there. The jacket's gone, the dress pants are rolled up, the dress shirt is left open, and it's showing off a pink t-shirt. Now, as a color, pink is definitely a bit of an immature color, right? There's a bit of an immaturity there, but there's also a nurturing, sort of motherly vibe there as well, which I do legit, and I know you guys are gonna laugh, but I do legit get from Jojima. I do feel like he's going to be sort of the mother hen of the group, and the pink shirt is maybe a possible nod to that. Again, colors have a lot more of an impact on your brain than you might think. There's a reason why certain companies use certain colors when trying to sell you things. Character designers are doing the same thing with colors. They are trying to impart a lot about a character's personality and desires and just general atmosphere to you through colors and little nods and like little additions to a character design, just to get you to try to understand them, even if it's on a subconscious level. Before you really dial in anything about that character, they're trying to communicate with the very furthest reaches of your mind. I know color design is very interesting, but I do think that the pink shirt is meant to indicate a sort of mother hen type vibe to Jojima. And I just adore this man's outfit. I think it's great. I love that it's still technically the school uniform, just heavily modified. Couldn't think of the word. I couldn't think of the word because I was just thinking about that dang uniform. It's fabulous. But also he has this sort of flowing, dirty blonde hair, light brown eyes. He's just a cool looking character. He's got the white running shoes. He just looks sick. I think Jojima is going to be the character to keep an eye on, and yeah, I just thought this character was great. But with that said, everybody, that is going to wrap up today's video here, so I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to boop that up snoot, share if you care, leave a comment down below, and of course, make sure that you hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, set notifications to all, let all of AniTube know that you're here, and of course, before we go, as always, I want to give a big thank you to the good folks in the T Squadron. Look at these beautiful people. Look at all these beautiful names, and hey, if you'd like to join these beautiful people, there are 2 ways to do so. The first is by hitting that join button right beside the sub button. That gets you a badge next to your name, some emotes to spam in the comments, and of course your name scrolling past the screen here. Or for just a single $1, you can check out that Patreon link in the description. That would help us out a ton. Thank you in advance if you're even thinking about doing it. Once again, a big thank you to the good folks at the T Squadron. And that is it for me. If you can't tell, I'm stumbling over my words because I am very sleepy. I should probably go get some sleep, but I can't. This is what it's like to be back on the daily grind. I am very tired. Okay, bye.